everyone, and welcome to the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Scott Coyne. I'll be your host for this week's episode, and joining me to be my wingman this week to help me review the week in Belgian football is our very own in-house favourite Belgian. It's Mr. Joris Beck. How are you, Joris?
I'm all right. Everything seems to be going okay in life, at least. In footballing life, well, things are still a bit different, or football fan life. But yeah, we'll might get to that later, or might not. Actually, might not touch too much on that game, but I'm sure it will come up one way or another. Yeah, everything all right? How about you?
Yep, I'm good. I've just been, today was my last day in my current job. So I'm now about to go on a 2-week holiday before starting a new job, which is kind of quite exciting. So a lot of decompressing for me and a bit more time to focus on some Belgian football matters, which is always a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, so Ben took up the option in your contract to work full time for the podcast. Okay, good to know.
He did, yes. Yep, regular listeners will already have noticed, of course, that our Ben's not with us this week. Such as life, things come along where sometimes you get whisked away for various reasons. But as ever, we are always here in some form or other. Hopefully he'll be back with us next week and we'll have a full trident as normal. We are, of course, we've reached match day 2. Hard to believe already. What happened this weekend? Well, Mechelen perhaps produced the first shock of the season. I don't think it was a shock. I'll argue it wasn't. But yeah, Mechelen managed to beat Club 2-1 on the same weekend that a Mechelen legend dropped in. Michel Prudhomme came to visit and had a great time this weekend by all accounts. What happened elsewhere? Westerlo managed to beat Zulte Waregem 3-1. Standard couldn't hold on for the win. They dropped some points, finished 1-1 with Dender at Sklessen. Ghent beat RAAL 1-0. Genk drew 1 each with Antwerp. The least said about that, the better from Joris's perspective. Much frustration ongoing there. We might touch on that a little bit. Cercle lost 2-0 at home to Anderlecht. Union Saint-Gilloise smashed David Huber's Leuven 5-0 at the Marion in Brussels, and Charleroi and St. Truden finished 1 apiece at Stade de Pays. So, all in the spirit of our new format, for those of you who maybe are catching up in episodes and haven't listened to last week's episode, the first episode of the new season, we're mixing things up a little bit this season and trying a new format where we're going to kind of jump around with some of the thematic things and little bits of news going on this week. So there'll be a little bit less of us perhaps doing deep dives into specific games, although we will do that with games that kind of demand it. So I thought we might start this week, Joris, with talking about some transfer business, because obviously the transfer window is still open. So there's still incomings and outgoings. Was there any business this past week that caught your eye in particular?
There is one big one, but I'll leave that one to you for sure as well. I'll focus on bit more maybe on internal Jupiler Pro League transfer, I guess, which is or Jupiler Pro League or Belgian transfer, I guess at least I should say. Like Kadri finally left Kortrijk. And he went on to join Ghent. They've always been interested, I believe, since a few years already. And now the time was there to make that step. Of course, got relegated, of course, and Ghent could use someone in midfield as well. Like they always can use someone, and always. And I know you're a big fan of this transfer as well, so.
Yeah, I'll pitch in my thoughts in a minute.
But I think that's probably a good pickup for Ghent. We will have to see if he indeed can bring them to a higher level as well, because they seem to be a bit stuck on that level of like 5th, 6th, 7th position, stable, but not at the positions you want to be stable at necessarily. maybe he's a player that can bring them to that higher level. Yeah, much anticipated transfer, whether it's going to Ghent or at least going away from Kortrijk, who have been struggling for the past few seasons, of course. That was coming. It actually took a sweet while before everything materialized. Even actually in this window could have been a bit earlier, but in the end it happened. And let's see if they can if he can indeed bring them to a higher level. But I want to give a negative shout out to the Ghent media team, which with the whole announcements and everything. There's this, so this is for many listeners might know about this, but for you maybe it's a bit of a context. There is a girls group, I guess you could say, the most popular girls group band in Belgium, for mainly for children, which is called K3. So like with K3, that is actually, but okay, pronounced in Dutch as K3. Very similar to Adel Kader's last name, of course. Yeah, and unfortunately, they have actually used that pun, I guess, in his announcements. If I'm not mistaken, I actually didn't watch it, but I think there was even a video about it, which went on this team, because it was just one pun. Okay, I can forgive it, but now it was a bit driving the silliness a bit too far, maybe. Also, not sure what to think about the messaging behind it. Okay. Small irritation of me, nothing particular. Yeah, I want. Yeah, before we jump to a few others, maybe I'll let you have your thoughts on this one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who knows Kadri as a player, and technically what he can bring to a side will know that. Yeah, I think for any team, this would be a good signing. The thing for me that I find slightly disappointing, is that the ongoing joke that we have here at the BFP about the phrase sometimes we use, that is such a Ghent signing. It kind of you'd file it under that. They have this tendency sometimes to kind of stockpile players that we know that are very good, and then something happens, there's a bit of a talent drain, and the players never ever to bring their best selves to Ghent as a club. Sometimes it has an odd effect on players. I like you, Joris. I think he's a really good pickup for them as well. He would be for anybody. I'm surprised there wasn't a little bit more competition for him. I mean, like Joris was saying, this feels like one that was kind of set to happen ages ago, and it was just waiting for all the levers to be pulled and certain things to fall into place, and they've decided they need to do it now. They've actually brought in a few recently, so Ivan Leko will be sleeping a little bit easier over the last week, I think. Winning this weekend, obviously important, because it didn't look like they were going to get the win for large chunks of the game against RAAL, but did manage to get the winner in the end. A lot of the players, obviously, they've brought in not featuring yet because they're not quite match fit. So players who I think might contribute kind of quite a lot over the course of the season aren't ready yet. So they're starting from behind the curve a little bit. It's worth reminding people of that. So they're not bringing in necessarily ready-made quality that's ready to start games at the moment. It might be another couple of weeks before we see some of these recent signings getting any game time, which will frustrate Lecco a little bit. But, at least it's starting to happen a bit for them now. I was flagging up recently that I think, expect a slow start from them this season, and maybe as we get into that kind of second third of the season, they might start to motor a little bit more as, the fitness levels start to build. Be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, a good signing for them nonetheless. And I think he'll be delighted, because this is a player who really should be playing at the top division in Belgium, as long as he's here. So the good news is he's still in Belgium, and we're still going to get to see him.
By the way, just to give a few more cents as well, still. Personally, I'm not sure if he will actually be that person as well. So, I have my doubts if he can actually do that. So let's put it that way. It's a good pickup, and it's indeed a very Ghent transfer, but we don't mean that necessarily in the best way, unfortunately, for them. It could be a good pickup, but I'm still also not sure with the whole physicality thing, okay, he brings his own type of physicality, but like nonetheless, he's of course a small creative player. So like on certain physical fronts, he's not going to be able to contribute much. In the air, of course, for example. But yeah, and of course, to make it succeed, he should get better stats than he already had. He didn't have the worst stats, but that's mainly in comparison to what his former sides in Kortrijk were doing and producing, which was unfortunately for them not as much. Yeah, he will have to up those stats as well to really make that impact and be of enough value for Ghent as well, of course.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, obviously, going to a side like Ghent is the expectations are very, very different on all players as to his role at Kortrijk, and how he's going to fit in there is going to be interesting. How exactly is Ivan Leko going to use him as well? It'll be really interesting to see. You would expect him to start regularly, once he's kind of fully fit and ready. I suspect Lecco sees a player like Kadri as being a really pivotal player in that side, you would imagine, because of what he can bring. But yeah, being the kind of creative playmaker in a Kortrijk side that has been struggling for a long time, as we know. Leading up to their eventual relegation, it's a very different thing to the expectation of expecting to make things happen in a side that's going to be trying to push very hard for a playoff one spot and to compete with the top sides. And what we will discover is how good a player really he is with those different expectations as well, because some people don't respond well to that. He strikes me as the sort of player who I think will be able to handle it. But we'll see, because sometimes very good players have gone into environments where the expectations are a bit different, and it just hasn't worked out for whatever reason as well. But there's been plenty of other kind of transfer news this week as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, another internal one that had been coming for a while, or at least there were some rumors for a while. Then the rumors calmed down, and eventually it did happen. Is of course Adriano Bertaccini to Anderlecht from Sint-Truiden. Yeah, another thing we will find out with this is how will Sint-Truiden score goals now Bertaccini is gone as well, of course. And yeah, he already is off to a good start because he already netted his first goal for Anderlecht at his debut as well. So yeah, that's another one. Similar doubts, even though he already has at least something behind him now already. That first goal, can he do it at the level Anderlecht needs? Of course, that's always going to be a question when making a step up inside the league. But yeah, also given his characteristics of being a little more suited for counter attacking football, which is more likely to happen at teams a bit lower in the table. Not saying this is his own, that's his only thing, his only qualities lie there. And so, but yeah, let's see if they can indeed adapt the system, or like he fits in the system. A bit of both, probably. Yeah, and just if he will be a regular starter, that's also still a question to be seen, of course. Yeah, interesting situation to follow up is anyway the situation at Anderlecht with the strikers they have at the moment. And yeah, if there will be any more movements, well, there's quite certain to be some movement, but what will be the pieces that will be moving?
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you see Bertaccini fitting in there, because he's quite a flexible player. He can play out wide as well and be pretty useful there. And we all know everyone knows about kind of Casper Dolberg. Does this mean he's going to leave? We don't know. I think, all options are a possibility there, because he's one of arguably the three, along with maybe Verscharen and Stroikens, who are, saleable assets to them as well. So Besnik Kazi has made no secret of the fact that he'd quite like to play two up front in some form. Now, obviously, you can do that in different ways. You can literally play two up front, or you can play off somebody, of course. So he's got some interesting options there. So he will, much like Ivan Leko, he'll be sleeping much better at night. And I think he's been quite complimentary about Bertaccini and what he can add to that Anderlecht squad. regardless of how they decide to kind of start games as well. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does, because some scoring in his debut just puts immediate pressure on everybody else. Great position for Hazy to be in, those questions being asked of everybody. We know that when Dolberg's firing on all cylinders, he's great. Scores goals for fun, but he has had, his fair share of injury problems, which have taken him out of the side for periods longer than anybody would like. I don't think anybody doubts it's a good pickup for them. There was plenty of interest in him as well. There was English interest, for a long while, but none of them pressed any buttons on it. And it was interesting to hear him say the other day that Anderlecht was always kind of his first choice, because they were the first side that kind of declared an obvious interest in him, and he's moving a little bit closer to family as well. There's some interesting comments from Felix Mazu, funnily enough, this week as well. He was talking about Bertoncini's move to Anderlecht and his thoughts on that, and he was also talking about Ilham Itra's move from Charleroi to Standard, and that getting on certain fan rivalries' nerves, and how that was kind of quite a brave move as well. So he has some interesting thoughts on some of the business this week. But yeah, plenty going on at Anderlecht actually at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Like they brought in already 10 players, I guess now, or is it even more than 10 now? Anyway, around or nearing 20 million already spent as well. Not as much coming in yet. I think there's the official sale from Patrice and some other small money coming in, pocket money coming in, but no real big sale. That's why we're also talking about that as well. Still, like one of those three that you mentioned, at least one of those three seems to be needing to leave. Yeah, with Dolberg, it feels like he wants to stay, but they're trying to softly push him out or make him want to leave, which I'm not sure if it's the right strategy, because I could see Dolberg and Bertaccini working together as well, even though it's not but that's more of a 2000s, 90s, 2000, end of 90s, 2000 thought anyway, of playing of a target man with a smaller, fast striker, pacey striker, like this kind of pair. Yeah, I do see them working together maybe as well. But yeah, let's see what will happen. Yeah, it looks like Goto might be leaving. Whether permanent or on loan is a bit unclear, and whether it's indeed going to be Sintrada to make the reverse move. That's another topic, but the parties definitely have mentioned that. I think it's fair to say that we are able to say that at the moment. But yeah, we don't know anything about it specifically yet. But that looks likely. Yeah, and if then will they keep going with Dolberg? Yeah, will Struikens leave, because I guess that's the second most valuable asset indeed. It's a bit quiet around him. There were some rumors around PSV and Hove a while ago, but it doesn't seem to have materialized, and I'm not sure if that interest is still going to be revived. Yeah, but maybe, of course, behind the scenes there's a lot of things are happening that we don't know. But he only has 1 year contract as well, so that's one of the main reasons, as extra reasons as well. That's why one of the reasons why they're not using him as much as well. Plus, unfortunately, he is not adding to whenever he is featuring so far. First early days in the season, he hasn't really he hasn't really shown yet. Like it's not that he made a brilliant appearance yet or anything, did anything spectacular. On the contrary, maybe even. But okay, one is maybe also linked to the other, of course. Maybe he actually wants to leave, and he's not really with his thoughts there anymore. Which is one of the things that Hazi also mentioned at the press conference after the game. I guess one of the reasons why, some people made out of it that he was referring to Dolberg specifically. I'm not sure if he actually was. I think it was probably more in general, or maybe even more on Struikens actually. But like that Hazi only wants to play players with players that want to be there, or with full focus, 100% focus on the club, which is, well, understandably, not the case with everyone that's been mentioned. Yeah, and then there's other cases as well. Like, yeah, a lot of incomings, still a lot of rumors at Anderlecht. Not that many outside the Goto case, maybe, but outgoing rumors at the moment. Yeah, and they have a really, really big squad. I believe it's like 30, 30 plus players anyway at the moment in their squad, partially due to some injuries as well. So maybe moving some players between the futures and the regulars in the senior squad. But nonetheless, yeah, that's there a lot of things going on there for sure. And like the incomings, they might need some more actually still, or looking for more, but they also need to go to get some players out of the door at some point as well. I'll like already, since I know we're talking quite a lot about it already, quite a while, and we want to touch on a few more. There's one big one still coming. Everyone knows about it anyway, but we will leave that towards the end maybe. But before that, I also want to touch on one of a player that's close to your heart that just didn't get to 100 goals or assists. Well, added to each other, so of course 99 goals and assists for combined for Nicolas Storm in 7 years at Mechelen. He's walked out of the door. It was coming as well. I guess it's also one of those where we would end up was a bit of a mystery up until the last moment, I guess. But yeah, it has happened. How are your feelings about it?
Yeah, I think it was one of those where it had been signposted for such a long time that it wasn't really unexpected. And obviously he wasn't getting game time when you expected he might, and that's always an indication of a lot going on. Either something being close, or just things rumbling in the background, which meant somebody was never going to get selected, I think. So I think it was just one of those. I think the decision was taken a while ago, probably. Certainly last season at some point, that it would be time to move on. But after that length of time at a club, I certainly don't begrudge a player an opportunity to go and try something new and fresh somewhere else for what will probably be the last move of his career. Probably not certain to be, but there's a fair chance this will be his last move. And he's been really good over those 7 years. Really, really good servant to Mechelen. I was joking with you guys that's the end of the trademark cut inside and shot at the near post routine that all of those defenders now in the Turkish league are going to have to watch on video analysis when it's pointed out by the analytical team that this guy Storm likes to cut in from the inside, and you know what I mean, so keep him on the outside so he can't do that. I'm sure that will be drummed into people ad nauseum. But yeah, good player who leaves, certainly with my Mechelen sympathies hat on, with kind of best wishes, I think. And yeah, an incredible contribution to the club's recent history. Really reliable, for the most part, very consistent player who tended to produce the goods for the majority of the period of the time that he was there. So I think they've been used to this transition coming. So it's not a shock. Speaking of things that aren't shocks, we now have confirmation of what is a significant transfer, but it's an external one, somebody leaving Belgium, of course, and it's significant because it is a new transfer record, Joris. The biggest outgoing transfer in Belgian footballing history. Ardon Yashari has now left the country, although it does feel like he left the country quite a few weeks ago, really, when the season ended. He decided that AC Milan was all he wanted and made that pretty clear by his actions and his behaviour. they've now reached an agreement with Milan. I think his medical's probably happening pretty much right now. I did see pictures of him on a flight earlier, so that could be confirmed, or probably will be by the time you hear this episode. 36 million, 3 million in bonuses, and they're also getting the payments in less instalments. So from club's perspective, this is another absolutely extraordinary deal, and that poker game of holding out for as long as possible seems to have paid off for them yet again.
Yeah, well, this was going to happen anyway. Yeah, as usual, is it 36 plus 3, or like in Italy is reported 34 plus 3? Regardless of that, I mean, on this kind of sum, it doesn't really matter as much, even though Club Brugge, of course, they had made it clear they wanted 40 and then basically break that symbolic barrier for Belgian clubs, I guess, as well. They did not get there, but okay, regardless of that, it is a transfer. I'm happy it's over, because this soap has been boring me for quite a while, and we all knew eventually it would come to this with 1 or 2 million differences, maybe somewhere, which obviously in the regular world is a lot of money, but in the footballing world feels a bit tough to negotiate it. But it looks like the at some level I get that. At some level it's a bit petty, but like it looks like the board really wanted that transfer records like really broken, and like that was the main thing for them. They got that, so fair play to them, of course, for that. And then, but yeah, in the end, is it worth it? The whole soap for like a month or so? Yeah, we'll see. So far, it's difficult to judge. Anyway, we depends on what the Club Brugge will do in the next couple of weeks a bit as well. I guess also what they will do with, well, maybe not with that money, but knowing that they will get that money at least over the next couple of seasons. That's. But yeah, I'm happy it's over, and it's good for everyone involved. I think as well for the media itself, of course, that this is over, that they can indeed move on, which they hope probably behind the scenes already did. But but
Yeah,
nonetheless.
I'm kind of totally with you. It was becoming incredibly tedious. I mean, I'm one of those people who tends to think when a player essentially downs tools and makes it very clear, I want out, I want this, then it's in everybody's best interest to reach the best deal for everybody, because nobody wants an unhappy player around. You know, he hadn't really been training with the squad, just a couple of sessions, and they weren't even full sessions from what I understand either. Didn't turn up for the team. It was. I know a lot of the club fans are a bit annoyed with how he approached this from his perspective, but sometimes, that's just the way it goes. And, players are going to, once their head's been turned and they want something, they're going to use everything at their disposal to try and put pressure on. And that's what was happening here. The interesting thing from club's perspective, I think, is, they weren't silly about it. They knew what was going on. They knew he was going. It was a case of holding out to get the best possible deal for them, and they've done that, and it's kind of reached its conclusion now. And it'd be really interesting to see how he does, because obviously, club have a bit of recent transfer history with Milan. Obviously, the Ketela transfer was quite protracted in its own right as well. So that there is this relationship between these two clubs now developing of quite complex kind of transfers and brinksmanship to see who can ultimately get the best deal. I think probably on both those transfers, club have come out much the better, both financially and probably in footballing terms as well. And it asks some interesting questions of what's going to happen at club now, because obviously still with the window open, Ordonez may very well be leaving. That's quite likely now. Onyedika, another one who looks more likely to be leaving than not. So I'm sure they will have plans already in place for this scenario. They'll know what they're doing, but makes this club side look a little bit more vulnerable than they did just a few days ago, even knowing that Yashari was leaving. And speaking of club, actually, just in the last few minutes, they've come away from Salzburg with a 1-0 win. Which didn't look like it was going to happen, but that's a pretty decent result for them to bring back to the Jan Breidel next week, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Especially since with the half I've been able to follow this game, of course, during the recording. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was a deserved win in the end. I suppose they had a good go against them again, as well as me. Salzburg, yeah, pressured really hard, but couldn't put the ball past me. Luckily, so yeah, a good result. The result is definitely good. All to play for still, of course, in Bruges, but it looks like coming away with a away win. The most difficult part might be over. But conjecture is, of course, still needed there. But yeah, it could be that the most difficult part is over, and they have a good position now to qualify for that next round. But yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that in a while, maybe as well.
Yeah. We won't
Yeah.
count our chickens too early, seeing as it's literal half time in that tie. Those with an eagle eye for detail will already know, of course, that if Club get past Salzburg, then it looks almost certain, if they do, that they'll be coming into my neck of the woods again to play Rangers, who last night had a very good first leg win over Victoria Pleasant. Ibrox. So if they can finish the job at the Jan Breidel, then it looks like I'll be out in press duties again for the big third round playoff tie, which will be nice, because there's plenty of excitement and tension in nights like that, because there's a lot riding on those games. Particularly in a financial sense as well, but we'll get to that. But yeah, great result to bring back to Belgium, and hopefully they can finish that off next week. Speaking of players, I'll just throw this right at you, Joris. Who's your player of the week this week?
Your favorite player at Mechelen. And I'm not kidding. Leon Lauberbach is my player of the week.
This will never happen again. Tell me all about it.
And it's also, I decided this before. It's not to set you up or anything. I decided this before. I knew we would be, unfortunately, only with two this week without Ben. I know not to wind you up either, but no, I think he actually had a really good game indeed. Like you mentioned at the beginning, with probably the first real upset of the season, at least on paper. When you watch the game, already less, and also when you watch the names that Club fielded or had to field, that's also okay. Coming back to Club for a very short while again now, when they are indeed still really, some players are in there that are not likely to be on at least on the positions they are in playing at the moment, like Fitness. Yeah, on in the starting 11 as well, which might change. And one small thing to add there, but that's already, it's a bit on a tangent. I'll get back to Lauberbach and Mechelen soon, but on that last week they still mentioned that they wouldn't replace Ordóñez if he would leave. I'm not sure if they will. I think they will decide to do something about that situation anyway. I think they could use someone anyway next to Spillers or Romero, and or Romero. I think one of them can stay probably. But I do think equality-wise, they need someone to replace Ordóñez for sure. As you could see in this game where Lauberbach, was actually able to. Unfortunately, he didn't score. We all know that's not his forte. But he did. But he did make it a really tough game for them. He created spaces. He also created a few chances for himself. He actually didn't finish them too badly. Jakkers had some good saves as well to deny him. So it was not completely up to him this time that he didn't score. But yeah, no, just and that's all of that just gave a lot of breathing room to Mechelen. Like maybe I think he actually lost most the duels of all players in the game, but at least he went for the balls, and like the grit was there. And then the second balls, then after maybe even after losing that duel, would come to Mechelen, would fall to Mechelen, who had a great game in general. The for most part of the game, they were okay. Granted, maybe playing on the counter attack, but that's actually not the worst way to play against the current Liberia side in the current form that they're in, shape that they're in. And that they did really make use of that. Another reason probably why Lauberbach for me was able to stand out. Really causing havoc, and like I said, creating spaces for both for himself and for other Mechelen players to dive in. And ultimately, it was enough to get them the victory. The last half an hour or maybe 15 minutes, Club Brugge were pushing, especially after they scored that 2-1. That was more or less out of nothing. A bit before that, I think it was maybe 1 minute before that, I think Lauberbach actually missed a chance on the 3-0, or was it another chance of Mechelen? But anyway, there were chances on both ends at that time. When Zoli scored the 2-1, the game shifted a bit more towards Club Brugge, and they took the game into hand, and they were still pressing and pushing for an equalizer or even a late win, but it didn't come. And over the 90 minutes, it was a deserved victory for Mechelen, I guess. And they did really well. And that was a start of the weekend that Mechelen fans would have been happy about.
Yeah, I think Fred Vanderbeest got his tactics pretty spot on actually for that game. I mean, obviously they knew they were going to have to dig in at some point, and they were
another thing I would not expect to hear from you, by the way.
Yeah, do you know, it's funny because I've been talking to Mechelen fans a little bit in this early part of the season, and a lot of them feel the same way as me, and the jury's a bit out about Vanderbeest and things like that. And I'm kind of happy to kind of see how this go. I mean, actually, they've had a positive start. Should be 6 out of 6. Since we're on this subject, still frustrated about that. That late penalty conceded against Zolta, still a bit annoying. But yeah, I mean, they've had as good a start as they could have hoped for, really. Which is good. They just need to obviously continue that. But yeah, I think tactically Fred Vanderbeest, and I'm going to be very complimentary to him this week, I think he got it right. I think he knew that there was going to be periods in this game where they were going to have to sit deep and dig in, and for the most part they defended pretty well. Becomes easier obviously when you get yourselves in front, because you do have something to defend, and they were making generally the most of their out balls, getting into good positions. Yeah, the irony, of course, of my least favourite player probably in Lauberbach, being your player of the week, is that I think you have to take your opportunities when they come along, and he missed a really good opportunity to get the third goal and to kill the game. Obviously, Club get the goal, it brings them back into the game and makes that last 25 minutes a bit tricky and a bit nervy, but that's sometimes you need a bit of that in the game. But yeah, really good result on an evening obviously in which everyone was in a really good mood because Michel Predhomme was back in town, having a great time with everybody. So I think that helped the atmosphere, I think, on both on and off the pitch. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, my player of the week this week is Ralph Lorix, Union Saint-Gilloise new striker, principally because I think he's had a cracking start to the season, 3 goals in 2. It's almost like he's always been there. Slightly different striker, obviously, slightly different option to what they had last season. Reportedly, he works much more on. It was interesting here, Kevin Morales this week commenting that he operates much more on instinct than some of the other strikers at the club, which can be a very, very dangerous thing. And I mean that as a compliment, not a negative. A lot of the best strikers at any level are naturally instinctive. So that's quite a lethal quality to have if you can start to score some goals. And it just looks to me like he's settled pretty quickly. which is important. Big contribution this weekend. Just another shout out to another player, not as a player of the week thing, because I have gone with RAAL Florix, but I just wanted to mention Adam Zorgan, who obviously starting games now needed a bit of a period of readjustment, didn't he, Joris, to kind of just a system change, because obviously Charleroi, who's came from, play quite differently to the way that Union play. So the demands on Adam Zorgan offensively and physically are a bit different at Union. But looking at him this weekend, he proved that he's every bit as good as we know he is, because he contributed a lot to the game this weekend. And that central midfield pairing of Zorgan and Charlie Vanu, I think is going to terrify a lot of people when it really gets going, which has started to already. And those two really float my boat. I think that's a proper midfield that could do very well in Belgium and really do a lot of damage, I think. Both excellent players. Charlie Vanu, very underrated player, I think, but he's working with a player in Adam Zorgan who's very flexible. You know, you can switch between offensive roles and deeper roles really at ease, I think, and they could interchange kind of quite a lot potentially as well, depending on how Poco wants to set them up. But Adam Zorgan's already announced his arrival for this season.
Yeah, getting an assist in the first minutes of your start, basically, it's not too shabby. It helps. Yeah, and okay, for that, I think it's not really a hot take, but it's too early to say nonetheless, because that Leuven side this weekend was clearly not the standard for any conclusions of anything, to be honest. But I actually had Flux as well on my shortlist for Player of the Week. But I left him for you, I guess. That's for sure as well. But no, I did want to go for Lauberbach anyway. But Flux was a good second, I think. Basically based on the goals he scored so far as well, of course. And yeah, being unpredictable is never a bad quality for a striker. Well, it can be, of course, because it often goes with the positive and the negative. But when it's a positive, then it can be really game-changing quality, real game-changing quality, of course. So yeah, interesting to see if he can keep that to the levels he's having at the moment, or the start that he's having. Because yeah, once again, that's also one of the reasons I eventually didn't go for an Union player, because yeah, they were really good, but at the moment, especially at the moment, it's very unclear if you go say they were really good or Leuven were really bad. Well, it's obviously both, but which part of the pendulum is swinging the most there is a big question. Yeah, I guess we could put a few words on that as well, because yeah, Lezen, it was actually of course also the Lezen derby, the brothers like facing each other, but Lezen in goal at Leuven actually probably was their man of the match still, and they lost 5-0. So I guess that actually sums everything up in one sentence. But the game was over after 6 minutes, basically, as well. After the first goal came in first minute, and then Sykes already scored after 6 minutes the second one. And yeah, okay, that's actually not too bad, because Leuven is, well, I can't really say historically at the moment, I guess, but like in the last few seasons has been a bit of a bogey side for Union at times, not always. This clearly wasn't one of them, but yeah, that's just they are not having the best of starts themselves, of course, giving away the lead and conceding so many goals. 7 goals, I guess that is now after only 2 games. Throwing away that lead against Charleroi in stoppage time. We already had question marks about Hubert, I guess. Let's say it's too early to make the big conclusions, but he's not off to a good start. That's clear. And he has some issues to address in his sides as well, clearly already. Like to say that the defensively, there's some things that are going wrong, and probably in general being a bit naive as well. Both these things is what I'm taking away from the 2 games they've already had as well.
Yeah, I think he was quite keen to highlight. He spoke last week as well after dropping points that they shouldn't have dropped, as we all know, about the hit to their confidence and starting to repeat bad habits that they've worked really hard in pre-season to avoid. And then you come to the Marion and you can see 2 goals very early, and as he was saying, the game's already over at that point, and you're in real danger of a mauling at that stage, and that's how it turned out. So that's not going to have done anything to kind of help soothe their nerves or address the underlying issues there. It's the worst possible recipe for them. That's sure. Speaking of recipes that are a little bit worrying, there is one particular side that are giving us very early cause for concern. First caveat, Claxon, we know it's very early and things can change and sides readjust, but we've been talking a little bit away from the show this week, so we'll do it live now that we're recording. We've seen some stuff from the newbies at RAAL that some early red flags, Joris.
Yeah, that's the least you could say, I guess. Again, with them, it's one of them is of course they are still adapting, so that's the big caveat. Indeed, they're really adapting, and you can see they're not ready at the moment. Whether that's planned or not, we will have to see. Of course, it could also have to do with the formats, as I've been hammering on a lot already. But yeah, let's see. But yeah, they don't seem to be able to score. They actually created a few good chances in this game against Ghent. And okay, granted, an away game against Ghent is not necessarily where you would see them picking up points, as is a home game against Standard. It's not, they don't have an easy start, so that we also have to nuance again as well. But yeah, difficulties scoring at the back. They were making, well, how should I say this? Yeah, childish mistakes, I guess, even sometimes, while sitting deep and playing very defensively, which is a recipe that could work in Belgian football, maybe more than in other leagues even, but with the quality that they have at the moment, it's probably not necessarily the best approach. Although, yeah, it's difficult it's a difficult balancing act, of course, as well. Because if you then play too naive, you could also end up like Leuven, like we just discussed as well. So okay, it's understandable, but yeah, there. When you go for that, then your organization should be good enough, and your players need to know what to do instead of just kicking the ball out, which for parts of the game was too often the case, that they just kicked it out, either literally out or out forward, but without knowing wherever the ball will end up. On its own, that's also a tactic, of course, but I don't think it was really meant to be like that on its own. It could be a way to create some chaos, and yeah, it's not necessarily the best tactic. It's based on a lot of luck, but it's something you could gamble on. But I don't think that was the case here. Yeah, and then the thing as well is, of course, um, the away game against Ghent, like I was saying, is maybe a mild factor. Like it's a away game against a side that's at least sub top or maybe top. But Ghent are at the moment not either. They are not performing well. So like, and even there, yeah, they got lucky a few times. Was it even 2 times with goals that were chopped off from Ghent? At least one that was very narrow offside in the build-up, where there was a very narrow offside in the build-up. But yeah, then the way they concede that last goal, well, the goal that counted, yeah, it's a bit shambolic defending. Actually, everything seemed to be okay after a while in the phase, but then they create chaos themselves again, and yeah, the ball gets loose and everything. Yeah, went down, and like, yeah, we had a little discussion in already as well. Like you hear from me, I guess it's a bit of the quality of the players that I'm putting it on. You already have a fear that it might be something else. I'll let you have your 2 cents about that. That it might be more about the manager, or maybe not more, but again, it's always a combination of everything. But that weighs in a bit more. Yeah, and that's we will have to see how it evolves there, of course. You have a little more insights in the club as well, of course, since you had that nice special with David Verjogen a few months
Yes,
ago.
it's
Yeah.
another chance for us to plug that as well, isn't it? You know, if you use, I'm sure plenty of you have already heard that, but we did do a really great RAAL special, which we recorded. Well, feels like a while ago now, although it wasn't actually that long ago. Towards the end of last season, just after they secured promotion, I sat down with the sporting director David Vervilgen to talk about all things recruitment and strategy and the club's infrastructure, and you know, to talk a little bit more about everything that's been going on inside RAAL. And yeah, just I mean, it feels like they're definitely a side in a kind of big transition at the moment as they attempt to try and find their feet at this level. What we don't know at the moment is whether they're going to be able to do that, or whether some of these early kind of worrying signs are going to become the norm and bed in, and it's too early to know that yet. But yeah, I mean, certainly I think the three of us would agree that, you know, on the basis of the opening 2 weekends, then there are, you know, there's some head scratching moments and plenty for Frederick Takin, the head coach there, who in this first time, of course, if you listen to that special, you'll know this is the first time he's coached at this level as well, with its own unique demands at Pro League level too. So watching how he adapts as well as a side that have brought in quite a lot of players as well. You know, in fact, they brought in somebody new this week as well. Another midfielder came in. So, you know, that's a lot of players to bed in and adapt and knit together a new side at a different level as well. So a lot of questions, and definitely going to be fascinating to kind of follow their progress over the first kind of 10 or 12 games to see how that goes. One of the interesting things David did say to me when we recorded was that RAAL, he feels, are a better side when they're kind of up against it, and often when they're chasing games rather than you know, setting the tempo and asserting themselves in games. And that's interesting psychologically. Not sure that's an approach that's going to really get you that many points at this level. So that may be something inside, I think. And it's just my own view in this. I think that's something that has to change. I think that mindset of being more assertive, and not necessarily waiting until you concede before you start playing any football is a particularly smart way to approach things at this level, because it's, you know, there's a big difference, I think, in lots of aspects between the Challenger Pro League, which we'll touch on in a minute because that kicks off again this weekend, and the specific demands of the Pro League. And I think that's what they're facing at the moment. Those very obvious tactical and physical parameters kind of being quite different in terms of how you have to approach games. Their home form is going to be really important to them this season. I know only one side is going to go down, which obviously plays to their advantage regardless. The risk is marginalised a little bit, but I think, you know, the points that they're going to need to secure their status, if they're going to do that, and that obviously is their target. I think a lot of that is going to be gathered with their home form. So they need to make the new ground really work for them. And as you move into any new ground, obviously there are teething issues there as well. So the early indications, obviously, the new ground are kind of good. You know, the ultras end behind the goal. And the standing area looks really good. Adds a bit of atmosphere, so there's plenty of positive indicators there. But yeah, they need to learn the lessons and adjust fast. So the analysts will be working very hard to get those kind of key messages and those key bits of info through to players and the coaching staff. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get their first win this weekend. That's something to kind of look out for.
I think they should try to go for that as well. Indeed, like Scott mentioned, it's a bit arbitrary, but you mentioned 12. I know we didn't plan this ahead actually, but I looked at the fixtures they have now. Charleroi, they have next weekend, and then Sint-Truiden. Those are two games where you already expect a little bit more, and they should actually get something out of it. I think to get some positive vibes going. Yeah, then they have a tough three going. Union, Mechelen. Okay, Mechelen will have that started well so far. Maybe by that time we don't know how things are going. Of course, it goes for all the other sides as well. But then Club Brugge, and then from game day 8 on, so I think that's nearing the end of September. Then there is 4 games in a row. yeah, that really will define the rest of the season. Then I guess with Leuven, Dender, Zulte Waregem, and Westerlo
Yeah,
coming up in a row. Yeah, and of course they will. Hopefully, they can pick up some points in any game. But I think these are 4 games in a row where you would, yeah, give them a bigger chance than in other games. Not saying the others they are the other sides are mugs, but just on paper, this looks a bit more look more like winnable games, and they will need to win some of those as well. These are the
yeah,
important games, and of course, apart from that, up till then, they also need to be a bit lucky with results of other
yeah,
sides as well to see how, if they are behind. At the moment, that's the case. They're the only side that have not gathered any point yet, which is quite remarkable after 2 game days already, by the way, as well.
yeah,
Similarly, Anderlecht at the other end is our only side that has won twice. Just to give that a little mention, that they need to see that they pick up and that they indeed are still close to the peloton, at least the back end of the peloton or the middle. At this point, it doesn't really matter with the format, for sure. So yeah, that's also, of course, we don't know if they're indeed gambling a little bit with that format. Like, if we need to get up to speed a bit later in the season, that would be enough. And whether that would be the right approach or not, we can discuss about that for a long while. I know no, there are several approaches to this. I think we even also have differences amongst ourselves in that, but yeah, we will have to see if if there would be at any point, and this is more of a general point, maybe not only La Louvière, but if the panic button is indeed going to be pushed a bit later than we're used to in Belgian football because of the format. Yeah, wait and see.
yeah. I think one thing's certain about the Pro League level is, regardless of who you are, you have to learn and adapt fast. So it doesn't matter if you're a stable Pro League side. You have to learn from bad performances and what the data's telling you kind of quite fast, because it's a very reactive and responsive league, and that's particularly more acute, I think, if you're a new side, if you're a side like RAAL who are coming up and having to adapt to lots of things, lots of big changes inside the club at the same time as well. So it's perhaps not unexpected that the opening weeks are proving to be a wee bit rocky for them. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Speaking of rocky situations, we should touch on the Challenger Pro League for the first time this season. We will be doing a Challenger Pro League special. It'll be coming at you a little bit later than the start of the season, so we will sit down and put that together for you very soon. So it will be getting some dedicated time of its own, because it does deserve it. So it is coming for those sitting, listening and wondering. But yeah, this weekend, Joris, the Challenger Pro League is back. Opening fixtures, the opening fixture, New Boys, Olympic Charleroi playing the other New Boys, Young Ghent. In the opening fixture of the weekend. But we know from the last few days, we have heard from the Belgian Competition Authority the legal case that was ongoing to challenge effectively the inclusion of the 4 development sides, and particularly the issue around there being no relegation and the sporting integrity around that. The Competition Authority have said, yes, we agree that it compromises sporting integrity, but they didn't see any grounds for any interim action, which has annoyed some people and some clubs. Lochran have already come out and said they're not happy. They're looking at what they can do about this. Quite interesting, because we thought, okay, there's a possibility it could delay the start of the season. It's not going to do that now. It's going to go ahead as normal, but this situation isn't going to go away. It's going to rumble on. That's for sure. Whether there's a new legal challenge or not, clubs are going to have to sit down and talk about this again and possibly look at further change. probably not this season now. This is probably lockdown for this season.
I would
Um,
not. Yeah,
yeah,
no, I
yeah,
would.
I think
To
I
be
think that's
honest,
fair. Yeah, yeah. My feeling at the
I'll admit
moment is, yeah, it's probably lockdown for this season. But remember this moment, people. I said that, but Joris is shaking his head, and I think he's probably right about that. That yeah, that this yeah, it's going to rumble on and change almost week on week. I think, but yeah, basically, the season's going to start this weekend as normal. And the good news, Joris, is because we thought it looked like there was only going to be half of the games broadcast each week, but all of them are going to be broadcast in some form or other, which I suppose is a positive thing. And you have our special to look forward to. That'll be coming in due course as well.
yeah. So like, I feel like it's indeed a Belgian solution so far, a bit. So like, they might have put a bigger bomb under the season if I guess the yeah, I think all the clubs that have now had their claim rejected will appeal together again. We also are still waiting on the case with Union, but that could also still have a different outcome. I think we will. It's not the last we hear about it, even when this season will indeed go on, start as supposed to be. But I fear like in like a few months' time, we might be in a very tricky situation, undermining though. Yeah, even more. um, yeah, so like
You're not
we'll have to see.
you're not possibly suggesting that the rules might change mid-season again.
That's that's exactly what I'm saying, which would be ironic, of course, as well, given
Yeah,
like that's exactly what they are fighting against.
yeah.
But if that goes on, then maybe. Also, I have to point out, there's two opening games. Of course, it's not only one. There's two Friday night games now, and three Saturday. More, sorry, I'm wrong. Even five Saturday games, Saturday evening games. So yeah, the Olympique Charleroi, Young Gent, as you've mentioned, but you can also choose and tune in for Seraing against Beerschot if you'd rather watch that one on Friday at the same time at 8 o'clock Belgian time. That is, of course. So for you, that would be 7, and other people around the world, yeah, Belgian time, 8 p.m. Belgian time.
Yeah.
It is, but. And yeah, on the broadcasting things, there's also a few things to say about that. Like, yeah, so the 4 games will be broadcasted with the half of the games will be broadcasted with the regular like a regular broadcaster by the zone. But for other games will be each weekend broadcasted through the tactical camera or
Mm.
automatical camera. How is it called? The one that is being used by video analysts, basically, that should operate on its own. And we'll have to. I'm interested to see how that will look like. I fear it could
What
look
could
like
possibly go wrong?
you're look exactly. Also, if something goes wrung with the hitting that camera somehow with a ball, or well, just in general, maybe actually something makes it move, what will happen? I fear for the images that they might not be the best qualities, best of quality. Yeah. But what I did find funny, ironic, and so on are the comments from Van Veldhoven, from the president of Lommel. Is it president or in the board of Lommel at least? Yeah, stating like, oh yeah, this is might not be good for our sponsors because they might not be visible, so like we might lose money on that. They might not be happy. Valid point. On its
Absolutely.
own,
Yeah.
it's just coming from Lommel. We are by far the biggest spenders and part of it, even more if a bigger group. It's a bit of a weird comment. It's a bit rich, to be
Yeah.
honest. I can imagine it's actually a bigger issue for other clubs in that league for sure. But that's a little. It was a bit more fun, but in on its own, it's actually a good point. So I mean, I'm not fighting the validity of that point, but just funny the side where that it's coming from. That's more it. Yeah. Oh, and maybe additionally, but I need to check. But if I'm not mistaken, so it's always the Friday games, the two Friday games that will have the full coverage by the zone, and two of the Saturday games, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, the full coverage in the sense of with the everything that's around in a regular broadcast. The rest will also get full coverage, but in a simmer down, a watered down form. So maybe it's not completely full then, but there will be commentators. There will be it will be possible to watch the games. Is what they say at the moment, at least.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's already been change on this. Because for a long time it looked like there was going to be a simulcast on the Friday night where all 8 games were going to be available for you to choose from at the same time. Then, up until quite recently, it looked like we were only going to get half. Now we're getting all of them, but the one half of them might not be getting the same quality of coverage as the other half. So, I think people are just like, okay, let's see how this goes. But as I was saying, yeah, what could possibly go wrong, and probably quite a lot actually. We'll come back to this one, that's for sure. Well, I think that's just about it for this week. But before we go, Joris, I was keen to get your thoughts on another European game, and of course, Anderlecht are in action on Thursday evening. They're playing Sheriff Tiraspol, Moldovan side, in their attempts to secure league phase European football after their Scandinavian disappointments. How do you think they might get on here in the first leg, Joris? Because Besnik Kazi this week's been saying that it's an absolute must that they get through this tie. He sees it as something that is season defining for them.
Yeah, maybe we should also quickly have a short look back on what happened last week as well. Unfortunately, our predictions were a bit off. None of us had really predicted that both sides would lose in the sense of both sides being Charleroi, who were knocked out by Hammarby, which, that was the one we not expected, but saw it as the biggest possibility. And is not great for the Belgian coefficients, of course. That's since Charleroi are not, and I mean they got unlucky with a draw in this case a bit, but are the Belgian side that goes out earliest in Europe ever, I believe, or ever given recent formats. I guess most likely that's something like that. But okay, that one we more or less expected. That Anderlecht going out after winning that first leg against Häcken, who are not in a good form in the Swedish league in Allsvenskan. Yeah, that we did not see coming, and it was a very deserved as well. They loss as well. They could have gone out. In the end, they lost on penalties. They could have gone out a lot earlier as well. So that was very. Yeah, that was not great. They could have used the Bertaccini in that game, for example, already. Now, of course, they have him. I think Hazi not today announced that he will not start yet, but at least it's an option. But personally, I feel like actually they lost their European group stages in losing that game against Häcken, because they might progress against Sheriff Tiraspol. I think they are the favorite. Well, no, they're clearly the favorites on paper, although I do not trust that side too much yet either. Anderlecht, that's a feeling that will not go away very soon, I believe, before they face serious competition in the league, and already having fall on fall to Häcken, and to a disappointing defeat. But okay, let's say they progress against Sheriff, so I do think they will win, to be honest. So I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I do think they will win also this first leg already. But and then most likely they will be playing AEK Athene, AEK Athens. So that's that's a bit of a different side already. Of course, it's difficult to judge them as well. Maybe it's too early to talk about them at the moment, but I do feel like even if they progress, they might get kicked out in the playoff round, and that they ruined their European chances last week for sure. Otherwise, they would have definitely ended up somewhere in Europe. Well, not definitely, but there was a bigger chance at least. And now hopefully they can do something, because we can't lose another side in Europe before the group stages to not make it. This was a season, is a season still that we may be able to overtake Netherlands and Portugal, even if maybe for a short while, and secure a second Champions League spot because of Charleroi defeat. And some other results from the respective Portuguese and Dutch sides that are currently already active. It does not look very likely this is going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen if we only will have 3 sides in any kind of group stages, unfortunately. So we really would need that 4th side. So I hope Anderlecht do it, but I do not trust that side at the moment still.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is if you lose over 2 legs to a pretty average mid-table Swedish side, particularly when you've got yourself in a reasonably good position, then yeah, even with a tie that you would expect them to win, the jury's very much out. They've got to go out there and kind of do it. Yeah, I completely agree where Joris is coming from on that. But yeah, we'll keep our fingers and toes crossed for lots of reasons. Club getting a good result tonight, as I was saying, hopefully they can finish that off next week and go into that Champions League third playoff round, in good fettle. Well, that's definitely it for this week. Thanks for joining me, Joris. Same time next week, hopefully with our regular presenter back with us.
Yes, and hopefully a little bit earlier, to be honest, as well.
Yes, we're slightly late. Those who listen to us regularly, and there are many of you good people out there. We are a little bit later this week for various reasons. So hopefully we'll be back to our usual schedule for you next week. If you like what we do here, please do consider leaving us a little review on your podcast platform of choice. It always helps new people find the BSP. If you really, really like what we do, and some of you do apparently, then please do consider our Buy Me a Coffee, which helps going some way towards some of our production costs here at the BFP. And whatever you're up to, have a fantastic week. If you get any listeners' questions for us as well, then do fire them in our direction towards our socials. Or our email as well, and we will tackle them for you, because with this new looser format that we're now following, it's much easier for us to kind of jump around and tackle them in a way that we can give them a little bit more space as well. So yeah, hit us up with any questions that you've got in the opening weeks as well. But yeah, whatever you're doing, stay safe, look after yourselves, everybody, and we will speak to you next week on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.